Welcome to Talking Kootenay Books. My name is Keith Powell. I'm your host. And today I'm pleased to have Dorothy McKay from Cranbrook as our guest on Talking Kootenay Books. Dorothy, you're a local writer based here in Cranbrook, and I just want you to tell me a little bit about yourself.
Well, before I was a writer, I worked, I was a city police officer in Calgary. That lets a cat out of the bag, because I don't put names of the cities in.
Okay. Well, how long were you an officer?
I was an officer almost 30 years.
Well, I've noticed that police work pops up in your books, so you're talking from experience.
Yes, yes. What do they say? You write what you know.
Yeah. So Dorothy, you and I have known each other for a long time. In fact, we've crossed paths a number of times. I really admire the fact that you get out and promote your books. I see you at the Cranbrook Farmers Market on a regular basis. And I just wanted to really sort of explore about your new series, and we're just going to talk about that, and you can maybe tell us about the series and why you think writing is so important and why you enjoy it so much. But first of all, let's talk about the newest book that you have out. It's the first in a series, I understand. It's called Diligence. Can you just give me a sort of a snapshot of what that book's all about?
Sure. It's, as you said, the first in a series, and I am working on a second book, but because of everything that's happened, it's been a slow go. What it's about a police officer joining the police force out in a coastal city on the west coast of Canada. All my books are in Canada.
I see. Based in Canada?
Based in Canada, and he joins the police department, and his first day as a rookie, they used to have what are called scenarios, and to see how people would react to things that had happened. And it would be a police scenario, like somebody running in with a gun or whatever. And when that happened, not only him, but a friend, well, he met her that day, Lula Murphy, both reacted to the fake bad guys and put them down rather painfully. Yeah,
I noticed that pretty dramatic scene as your book opens up. And so these two individuals, I think it's Raphael Campbell and Lula Murphy,
yes,
play a central role throughout the book. And when I was reading the book and going through it, I had to say, Dorothy, this is pretty contemporary, because there's a lot of connection to what's going on in Afghanistan in the book. And was that by accident, or how did that all come together?
That I wrote this book, and it was published in 2019.
Yeah.
And there was all these things happening in Afghanistan, and of course Canada and the U.S. and other countries were still fighting against the Taliban and everything. And of course we all know that when you're writing fiction, it's the great what if. What if we do it this way? What if we do it that way? What do you think about this? And that's how I write my books. I do that. The what if is there. And with that book, there was made mention an intelligent agency in Canada at the time, around the time, and of course the whole Air India disaster. And of course, as a police officer, police officers by their very nature are curious, and we all talk. Across, they'll be coming up to pick up a prisoner from Calgary, or you're talking to somebody from Vancouver, and everybody talks about what's going on, be it with the RCMP or this particular intelligence agency and that kind of thing, from that, I started thinking about it, and I just finished a trilogy, and again, it's about Canadian police officers, with me, I don't do outlines. I wake up in the morning, and I have to have the first sentence of the next chapter in my head, and then I just let it go.
Right. Well, your books are, I have to say, pretty gritty. they're real, and you know, you really sort of delve into the character development and so forth. But I can see where you're writing from experience. Many of the police tactics and come through very clearly. But you must have had to do a lot of research to make sure that what you're presenting and writing is accurate. How did you go about that?
Well, I have a friend, Kyle, who is one of the councilmen up in Kimberley.
Okay.
And he was in Bosnia and saw a lot of the stuff with IEDs and other situations going on when he was over there. So he had a really good idea about munitions, how to make an IED, also what it is to be in the middle of a war.
So would you call him a consultant to your book, or
Yes,
a mentor, or how?
I would definitely call him a consultant. Certainly when it came to the munitions, and that he was very, very helpful with that. And he had read my other books and had given me, you know, just I know how to, what's going on as far as police work is concerned, but munitions, that kind of thing, I wasn't as up on them as I am with other things.
So he's a little bit of your fact checker. He makes sure
Yes.
that what you're portraying is accurate. So of
Yes.
course this is a work of fiction, but like I mentioned, it's almost like it's been torn out of the headlines today because there's a tremendous amount in the news about Afghanistan and the tragedy that's taking place in that country. But what sort of motivated you or made it interesting to you to want to write about that era, that country, that conflict?
I have read quite a bit about it, and was definitely interested in it. I also did some research, Googled some interesting facts and everything, and of course I'd met Kyle. And we struck up a friendship, and then we started talking back and forth.
Well, it is a sort of a captivating read, and as I mentioned, very contemporary. I'm just wondering, we're going to talk just for a few minutes about your writing style and how you approach, you know, the task of writing. So you've got the idea, you've got the creative down in your head, you sort of know where you're going to go, but how do you actually take it and get it onto the paper?
Well, with me, and I can't speak for other writers, with me it's kind of a weird but interesting. I'll wake up, like I said earlier, with a line of the chapter, and I'll put that down, and then it just goes. I mean, and there are times when I've had to kind of put it down for a minute because it was. There's a certain couple of other books kind of went a really odd way, but anyway. But this, it actually, and I know this, it sounds silly, but it actually wrote itself. I just like, and I have to picture it.
Right.
And then when I see it in my imagination, that's how I write it.
Right. So obviously, as you develop the book, develop the plot, and put it together, do you have someone sort of proofread it, or do you go through it and fact check it, or how do you go about that process?
No, I just, every day, of course, you write your chapters and you go over them and go over them. And then I don't have anybody proofread it here. I do have an editor who's out in Victoria, and who I just hand it to them, finished.
Right.
Because unfortunately, I'm one of those people that I tend to, with commas and such, they tend to go, I throw them up in the air, and where they land is anybody's guess.
My wife is my editor from time to time, and she always says, oh, it's nice that you put a comma behind that word, but it doesn't need to be there. She said, I'm sure you were just doing it for fun. So, so you know, they do end up in all kinds of places. I wanted to just again go back and explore the fact that, you know, I see you at the markets on a consistent basis marketing your book, and I've interviewed probably 40 authors over the last couple of years on Talking Kootenay Books. And one thing that many writers find a real challenge at is marketing their book. So it's one thing to write it, it's another thing to get out and promote it. So
Yes.
hats off to you for being diligent. I've seen you sitting there in the rain, the wind. I'm not sure about the snow, but you are out there promoting your book in all kinds of conditions. And I'm just wondering what the reaction of people is when they see you sitting at your table promoting your own books.
Well, I always talk to them as R.W. Wells, first off, and if people start inching in, I have posters, of course, and they start inching in, you know, and they're interested. I'll say these are crime novels, and they're somewhat graphic, and I've actually had young kids come up because I should never have put a teddy bear on that cover. That was maybe a mistake. But, I mean, it's, when you're a police officer, one of the biggest things you've got is your voice. Whether you're interviewing a bad guy or you're interviewing some victims, it's your voice that, you know, helps. That's your number one weapon, is your voice. Right. And I get out there, and as I've written more and more, I've been out there, unfortunately, and I know a lot of writers are suffering from this. Before this whole COVID thing broke loose, I went to a number of conferences for publishers and writers, and I was selling books there and doing really, really, really well.
Yeah, good.
And of course, I actually, I go to the markets, but I also, believe it or not, I've been to Save On and promoted them there and actually did quite well. Good.
Well, you would certainly take the initiative to promote your book, so that's excellent. I want to also talk about the publishing experience. You self-publish your books, is that correct?
Yes.
And how does that process work?
Well, for me, the process is I do up the book, and then my editor, she, and I, of course, everything's done under Black Cat Books. It's a registered name, but and then I send it out to my editor, and she goes through it. And I've been lucky. I've got a really good editor, and you know, she'll give me a hard time about a few things because I get a little carried away. But as you may have noticed, but it's for me. Once I get into it, and it's up here. I just have to make sure, because then I understand a lot of writers use outlines. I can't seem to do an outline.
Right. So it seems like you have the idea, the creative force sort of gets it onto the page, and away you go, and then it's off to the editor, the printer, and you get the finished product back.
Yes, and I mean, of course, when I'm writing it, and I'm sure you're like this too, you go over and over and over in your book. And, you know, like I'll go over the chapters that I did the day before, but you get to the point where you've gone over it so many times, and then you just, okay, this is the end, this is good, and I've got this start or a bit of exigent circumstances, which is on my next novel.
Sure. Well, it's important to actually get that sort of third eye view, someone else looking at it, and get their perspective as well. Dorothy, just before we wrap up, you made the book. I'm just going to back up here just for a moment. I was remiss to say that you write under the pen name R.L. Wells. Is that correct?
R.W. Wells.
R.W. Wells. Okay. And so people, if they're looking for your book, that's the name of the author that they should look for.
Yes, they're on Amazon. However, and I'll make this point, it's R.W. There's no period mark there. Okay. That's a children's book writer, and nice guy, but I'm pretty sure his books are not as graphic as mine are.
Right. Okay, good. And so just as we wrap up, why would people enjoy reading your books?
I think there's certain people I think that do enjoy a very fast-paced crime novel. And because I was a police officer for so long, I've seen many, many things. some of which I wish I'd never seen, but it is what it is. And people that like crime novels, I think, would really like them, and they are very fast-paced.
Sure. What kind of reaction do you get when people have read the book?
I get a really, really good reaction from a lot of people, and I've actually had people come up to me and tell me how much they've enjoyed the books and when's the next book coming out.
So they're looking for edition number 2 in the series, right?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you made the bold move of actually putting the first chapter of
Yes.
the second book at the end of your first book.
Yes.
Do you feel any pressure that you've got to get that second book out?
I do a bit, but like I say, this COVID thing has really just kind of blown, like there's no conferences or anything right now, and so I'm anxious to start it. I mean, I've got about half of it kind of written in my mind, so.
Well, I'm sure your fan base is looking forward to the next edition. Three books is what you're hoping to do in the series? Or?
At least 3.
Yeah, okay, well, good. R.W. Wells or Dorothy McKay, thank you for being a guest on Talking Kootenay Books.
Thank you.
I appreciate the fact that you took the time to be here, and keep promoting your books and getting them out to the public. You're
Yes.
building a readership for sure.
Yes, thank you very much.
This is Talking Kootenay Books, and my name is Keith Powell. Welcome to Talking Kootenay Books. My name is Keith Powell. I'm your host today. Talking Kootenay Books talks to local authors, writers in the area. It just sort of tries to delve into the motivation, what causes them to want to put pen to paper and put together a book. Today our guest is Ashley Lord. Welcome, Ashley. Great to have you on the show today.
Thank you so much. So lovely to be here.
You've got a new book out, relatively recently published, is that correct?
Yeah, about a year and a half ago.
Okay. So you and I met at the Cranbrook Farmers Market, and you're there promoting your book. Just tell me a little bit about the book and sort of what motivated you to write it.
Yeah, thank you. I call it a book of poetic medicine for the soul. So it's a book of poetry. And then the book that you've seen and that I've been promoting recently is actually a special edition. And it came out in June of this year. And it is the original book, but then with meditations and energy practices and affirmations kind of woven in amongst the poetry.
Okay. So when I had the chance to go through your book and read a number of the passages, beautiful poetry, beautifully put together, I had a hard time sort of deciding, is this a self-help book? Is it a affirmation book? Is it a poetry book? I guess maybe it's a bit hard to classify it, but maybe it's all those things.
Yeah, it's a little bit of everything, I guess.
So what motivated you to write it?
The original book, so I've been writing poetry for a really long time, many moons of poetry. And I just had really an instinct to release it out to the world, that the poems were no longer for me anymore, because the theme of the book really is a lot of self-love, spirituality, healing. And so during the writing of the book, I did a lot of deep inner healing. And when I was guiding a women's retreat, it just came to me that I knew I needed to allow the work and these words that helped me heal so much to just be out in the world and to share them.
So it came through to me pretty clear that this was some sort of therapy for yourself, and that you've put the book down and you've really got this concept put together. Was it that sort of an experience for you?
It was definitely therapeutic to write it. Writing in general is one of my biggest forms of therapy, and being also, so I'm an intuitive energy healer, and I really feel connected with spirit and with channeling. And so I just became really open to allowing myself to receive the messages that I needed to receive for my own healing. But then it's so beautiful because they're really quite universal, which is why I feel like so many people have resonated with the words. And and how it's become really a tool for healing.
So there's lots of writing styles. Why poems?
It's just what comes through me.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like I didn't choose to be a poet. That's one of my gifts on this earth. It's one of my,
Is that something that you discovered recently, or have you always been a poet?
I feel like I've always been a poet for a long time. Yeah, I started writing, oh man, like years ago, like when I was a teenager. So part of my story is, so I'm a very sensitive soul, and had a lot of kind of traumatic things happen as a really young person, and had to grow up really quickly. And learned at a young age how, just some tools of how to like navigate my own inner landscape. So writing to me has always been quite therapeutic, and yeah, I feel really blessed that I get to be able to be that kind of vessel for poetry, because
I noticed throughout the book as well, there's sort of suggestions of self-help, journaling, that kind of thing. So is that sort of like a program that you're suggesting that people follow that might help them?
It could. I mean, I guess you could call it a program. I mean, the intention of the book for me really, so first of all, one of my prayer when I published this book was that it would find its way into the hands and the hearts of all of those who needed its medicine, who needed its prayers, who needed its energy. And then, yeah, I mean, as someone who I've guided yoga and meditation for a really long time, I've been really blessed to work with a lot of women in a healing context. So whether that's retreats or women's circles, working one-on-one with women specifically, although lots of men read my book as well, but I just particularly happen to work with a lot of women. But I weave in a lot of these tools into the work that I do. And I'm actually going to be coming out probably around Christmas with a journal that will go along with this book, just as an offering, as a space to
sort of
write.
like a companion piece?
A little companion piece, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So again, I admire the fact that you get out and promote your book and talk to people. What is the reaction when you interact with your audience?
It's really quite beautiful to see people receive the book as they do. It's actually blown me away, the reception that I've got from this book. And especially to hear, like I meet people all the time and people are quite curious about the book, and especially with what's going on in the world, and people really, we're being guided so much within right now, and to really find our peace and our solitude, because the world is like a little bit mad. Mm-hmm. So we really have to go within to find our steadiness and our peace. But when the most beautiful thing I feel that I get to receive and that I get to witness is other people, and how, like when they've read my book and the shift it's made in them. Like, and the stories that I hear about how a particular piece has touched someone, or that I get a lot of women getting the book and gifting it to their girlfriends, which is so beautiful as well. So yeah, it's I always say, like, this book, and I call her she's like my she's like my daughter, my book baby. I get to be her mother and just, watch her grow. And the medicine of this book is just, it's been beautiful to witness just so many people healing and elevating themselves and really stepping into their own power, stepping into their light. That's like one of the main themes from this book, and what my healing journey was. It was really reclaiming my authority, my inner authority, and really stepping into my power. And so it's really such a special experience to watch others.
So that really speaks to the title of the book, In the Heart of the Light, right?
Yeah.
And so what you sort of alluded to the fact that you're putting out a companion journal. Any other future plans as to maybe a possible another edition, or what does the future hold?
Very much. I've already started working on my next book. So it's called The Fire That Burns in the Dark. So it's it's the next collection of poetry. I started writing it maybe about a year ago. And then I'm probably in the next month or so, I'm going to start actually compiling it into the book.
Okay.
Usually I just give myself a lot of space to allow the poems to come through, and actually since moving out to BC, because I'm originally from Toronto, since moving out here and living in the mountains, this new book has just flowed through me. There's a magic in this area that I feel really blessed to be in.
So you're finding the Kootenays to be inspiring?
Very, very much. I love it so much.
Good. Well, congratulations, Ashley. It's been a pleasure to have you as a guest in Talking Kootenay Books. Keep up the good work and keep writing those poems.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
This is Talking Kootenay Books, and my name is Keith Powell.